Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here, Bob Stewart over there. Bob, I didn't want to let you down. Went back to the old opening. You good?
You did. I mean, you did 385 episodes the same way, and then the last one we did, you just switched it up. So yeah, that felt normal.
That felt better. All right. Normal's good for you? You like normal?
I don't know. No. Like,
okay.
Our friend Brian Gubernick's been having this whole discussion about like being weird.
Yep.
Like in our business, weird is, doing 100 transactions in a year. That's weird, right? But like, I don't want to be normal. No. So I guess I don't know why I just said I'm glad we're back to normal, because normal stinks.
Yeah, right.
I want you to every time do something new and different.
Like, I can't do it. No. I would totally run out of things. I'll start saying it in another language. Who knows what I'll figure out how to do, Bob. Here's the thing. There are certain things, patterns are good. And then there are certain times where breaking patterns is good. I think without even realizing what you just said and bringing in Brian's information, I think our guest today is going to be perfect for this conversation. But before we move on to that, you mentioned our friend Brian Gubernick, the host of No Days Off podcast. Folks, It's part of the network. It's out there. Go get No Days Off. Subscribe to that. 5-6 minute episodes. I mean, now and then he hits 10. Oh my gosh. Right, folks, you can't drink your coffee in the amount of time Brian takes to take you through a lesson every single day. Don't miss out on the No Days Off podcast. Bob, you ready to go on theirs?
Was that paying the bills? Does Brian pay for that sponsorship? Or I feel like I didn't get a cut of that.
You think I can make him pay for some of that now?
Maybe.
All right. Yeah. Brian, contact me. All right, Bob, you ready to go for today's episode?
I am. I'm excited. I was reading through her stuff and some of the books you guys have written, Ravinder. Holy cow. I have negative self-talk. There's a whole bunch of things that I might want to take this, directions to take this thing.
Our audience knows Bob goes to therapy, and we are all thankful for it. Yet 90% of the guests I bring on the podcast, because I have the pleasure of tracking down most of our guests or getting connected with most of our guests, 90% of them are probably to help Bob's therapy move forward.
Yeah. See, I see what you're doing there, Chad. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's why sometimes it's a health one when I know, you're putting on a few pounds. Maybe I need to bring a health speaker. Today, we're going to get into your head, Bob, and we're going to bring on our friend to the Win, Make, Give podcast, Ravinder Taylor. Welcome to joining Bob and I today.
Thanks so much for having me on, Chad and Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
We are too, and we have no idea where this is going to go, folks. We know our general. We always do. Bob and I have kind of a general, and then we have some fun with it. Ravinder, one of the things we do here at Win, Make, Give is we refuse to read bios. So introduce yourself to our audience like a regular person would instead of like that professional bio sounds.
Well, I am Ravinder Taylor. I've been interested in the power of the mind since I was really young, but then in my early 20s, I had a couple of experiences that got me more fascinated, and I did a deep dive. So for the past 35 plus years, I have been looking at why we do what we do, why we have self-destructive patterns, just the influence of the mind over all aspects of our lives and what causes that, and how we can use it practically. My perspective is very much the practical perspective. My approach is scientific, but if it doesn't have practical applications, then I don't have much time for it.
That's appreciated. Now, the disclosure I want to put out there, Ravinder, as we get into this conversation is, remember, you're really smart. Bob and I are not that smart. So no big words today. All right. You're going to have to break those big words down for us that are in your bio and in some of the information we have here. Remember, you're talking to two guys that are just here having a good time learning and helping and sharing with other people. So let's make this easy. We're going to be talking about Ravinder's book today. Now, Amazon, is that the easiest way for them to go get it?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes, anywhere. But yeah, Amazon's great.
Go. The book is called Mind Training, The Science of Self-Empowerment. And you can find it by searching for Ravinder Taylor on any of those book sites that are out there. We're going to be diving into a lot of the information that's in there. Bob Stewart, take it away.
There's a million ways I want to go here. You said something like, I don't know exactly the phrase you used, but essentially like, where does all that negative self-talk in our head come from? Can we just start there? We've done a whole episode on negative self-talk, Chad. I don't remember the numbers, but I remember that like
95% of our thoughts are negative, and
we have these same thoughts day over day, Ravinder, right? Like, and why do so many of us have negative self-talk?
There's two parts to that question. Our subconscious mind intakes all of our experiences. Buried deep within us is a repository of all of our experiences and our emotions that were attached to those experiences. So you have all of that, but then you've also got the power of bad. Bad is more powerful than good. We're herd animals. We like to be in a group. We rely on the group for so many things, for support, for structure, all the things we enjoy in a civilization. So if someone were to frown at you or to say something bad to you, even though they may have told you 10 good things, you're going to hone in on the bad thing. And that gets tucked away in your long bag, in that subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is responsible for the bulk of your choices. So that's what it repeats. So it just keeps on repeating the bad things. It's not that it's trying to hurt you. It thinks that it's trying to protect you. It's trying to protect you from getting hurt again. It's trying to protect you from being ostracized again. So when you're repeating these bad things, it's just, you're repeating to yourself the contents of your subconscious mind, and it's designed to protect you, but frequently it becomes a self-destructive pattern because it's relying on old information and it's relying just on the bad stuff.
All right, Bob, I've got her at 2 big words so far, just so you know, I'm keeping track. 2 words that I happen to know them, but somebody out there is opening up.
I'm so dumb, the big words didn't even register in my brain, I think. Like, it just went right past, so it's okay. It's okay, Ravinder. Wait, hold on. So you said something. You said bad is more powerful than good. And I think we all, like, and then you gave us an example. Somebody smiles at you 10 times and they frown at you. And a week later, you're like, oh, that frowner, right? Is that like scientifically bad is more powerful than good? Like, we have research out there and science to suggest that our brains are holding on to that frown more impactfully than the 10 smiles I got from Chad?
Absolutely. They've actually used that information to make different kinds of predictions as well. So Dr. Gottman at the University of Washington, he looked at relationships, and just based on how the couple, their interactions, how they talk to each other, he could predict if the relationship was going to work or if it was going to fall apart. And they estimated that it takes 5 good interactions to counteract each bad interaction. So if you say something, if you say something bad to your partner or you make a mistake of some kind, don't think just one apology is going to fix it. You've got to have at least 5. And that big grand gesture isn't going to do it. It has to be, especially for females, for all the guys out there, if you're trying to make sure that your partner isn't too upset with you, it's the small things that count, and it's the consistency that counts. But yes, they've actually predicted that there, and they've actually predicted that in the business environment as well. They basically say that it takes 5 good things to counteract every bad thing. Now, I think that's going to vary because it depends on the kind of bad and the kind of hurt. Some people can say things that, slice and dice you, and you don't ever forget them. But as a general rule, for our ordinary interactions, then you want 5 good ones for every bad one.
I got to remember that for all the times I take shots at my friend Bob there. I'm going to have to lift him up 5 times for every time. So Bob, I owe you about 1,000 episodes of support to make up for it. Okay, Ravinder, the thing that's jumping out at me from your opening conversation there, the book's called Mind Training. So you're telling me that it's going to take on the badge. You're telling me that it's a 1 to 5. Can I train my mind to lean away from that lizard brain concept of, it's keeping that bad to keep me safe? Can I train it so that I start having more positive memories and more positive thoughts in there, which are going to lead me down a different path?
Yes, that is the title of the book, Mind Training. Every chapter has exercises at the end of it to help you think more positively. Train yourself out of not reacting to bad. Oftentimes, when you are aware of the source of a problem, it can disappear by itself. So just having an awareness that we are biologically made to hone in on that bad comment our employer said, or that bad thing our spouse said. The fact that, that is just inbuilt into us, it gives us room to pause, to step back and assess that information again. You look at it through a different lens. So just having the information itself can be really, really beneficial. But there are lots of exercises in mind training that are designed to get you to pay attention to the information that goes into the subconscious mind, how it goes in. Just paying attention.
Can you give me, Ravinder, can you give us an example of something? So I'm having an experience. What would be a technique that would allow that experience to land in my subconscious in a positive way as opposed to a negative way, I guess?
As I said, that is what mind training is all about. Let me take it a different direction, Bob, okay? Just to share a bit of a story with you. When I was young, The Exorcist came out. My brother saw it in the theater. He was scared out of his mind, but I was too young to go see it then. So when it came out on videotape, he brought it home and he wanted me to watch it with him because he wanted to see me scared crazy.
Okay.
Nice brother.
Yeah, classical brother, but I was going to thwart that one. So it's like, okay, he's looking for this reaction. What can I do to negate it? And so I put my thinking cap on. And so you have all of these horrible scenes where the girl's head spins around and all of those things. And rather than being in it, I was observing it. And I was thinking about all the videography, all the makeup, all the effects that they use in order to get that. Now, I don't know anything about videography. I don't know anything about, the special makeup, but I do know that they do these things and I have seen them before. And so just having that mindset made it possible for me to watch the whole movie with zero reaction.
That's interesting because you basically you just repositioned your view of the thing that was happening, right? I don't know how more.
Yeah, instead of being in it, you became an observer of it and you were watching yourself, almost watching it and seeing how it was happening. And that obviously changes how your subconscious is going to feel.
But I was bringing in my thinking mind. A great deal of what we do on automatic pilot. And there's lots of benefits to that. You don't want to have to think about how to put one foot in front of the other in order to walk. There are lots of things that we do on automatic pilot. There are lots of decisions we make automatically as well, just based on past experience. We're not really thinking about them. But when you do bring in, Kahneman is the author of Thinking Fast and Slow. He got his prize in behavioral economics. He won the Nobel Prize for that. He uses a model that is very useful where he talks about system 1 and system 2 thinking. System 1 is basically the automatic thinking. It's just a quick, easy way to handle everyday life. System 2 thinking is that slow, thoughtful process. You're actually looking, you're assessing it. It takes more work, which is why we don't tend to use system 2 that much.
I mean,
but in the instance of watching this movie, I was bringing in system 2 thinking. I was analyzing it. I wasn't just observing it. I was, well, that's a cool effect. I wonder how they did that. So it said I wasn't simply observing. I was paying attention to the fact that I know all of these effects get used, all of these special techniques get used, and I was trying to discern them for myself. So it
Bob,
just put me in a different mode.
I just used this without even knowing I was using this, because we watched The Wild Robot, and I don't know if you've seen the movie yet. You can't watch it and not cry. It's one of those movies, right? I don't care who you are, you're gonna cry. And I could tell the point was coming where the crying was supposed to happen. And all of a sudden I was looking at it going, this animation is amazing. Look how they make the fur look real on that fox. And look how and the crying moment came and went, and I survived because I was using that thinking without even realizing that's what I was doing. I was just preparing to take it in a different way so that it didn't get me emotionally, like, my wife, who's probably still crying days later after watching it. It's really interesting. That's an interesting technique.
Me, like, as I listen to her talk about this, I wonder how many decisions you make throughout a day that I should be questioning why I did the thing I just did.
Most of them.
Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, Chad, how do I start to? Is it just awareness? I'm just like, I should start questioning the reasons that I do some of the things I do. Should I be focusing on, like, how do you start to get to the level 2 thinking on more things? Or maybe you'd say, no, just only go to level 2 thinking on the things that are like, getting bad outcomes for you. Like, how do I shift into level 2 thinking?
You stop and think.
Okay.
That's how you shift into it. But trying to decide where to do that, because you can't do that everywhere. You wouldn't get anything done ever.
Yeah.
With my personal focus is to do with choosing the kind of person we want to be, choosing the kind of person I want to be. So that's where I will pay a whole lot more attention to it. If I've done something and I haven't liked myself for it, then I'm definitely going to start engaging system 2 kinds of thinking to kind of figure it out and to start rehearsing in my mind so that when that type of thing comes up again, I won't make the same mistake again. So it all comes with choosing who it is that you want to be, what kind of life it is that you want to have, having this awareness that your life is governed by your subconscious mind. So therefore, take a look at all aspects of your life and you can choose. Do I want to fix this area? Is this area fine? Can I do better here? It's all about becoming the best version of yourself.
I like that you tied it back to like
society.
I like that you tied it back to who am I, right? Like, and once I know that you asked there's who do I choose to be is your kind of next version of who am I, right? Because I'm making a choice and I'm generally making it through these subconscious things I'm doing all day long. But when I act as the person that I'm not choosing to be or I don't want to be, that's when I start to go into level 2 thinking and try to figure out, like, well, where did that come from?
Okay, so Ravinder, a lot of people like the easy button, right? And we know they do. I mean, everybody does. We're always going to look for the path of least resistance.
I feel like it's the brain. There's not an easy button on your brain. The thing is like the most complicated organism on the friggin' planet, right?
Yeah, and it's looking for the easy button because it's doing so many other things. I want the easiest solution over here. One of the words that jumps out off the information we got about you before our conversation is hypnotherapy. And I've always been completely fascinated by this. I've never been hypnotized. I mean, does that stuff does it really work? And if it does, will it help us with some of this stuff of training our mind to be different? Can hypnotherapy be something that more people should pay more attention to?
Hypnotherapy is a great tool.
Can we
It's
make
great.
Bob dance like a chicken?
You know, that reminds me of how I got into this field in the first place. My background, my degree's in microbiology. I was working in a path lab. I didn't think much of hypnosis at all. I did think it was something just for entertainment on the stage and to help people look like chickens, make idiots of themselves, and make the audience laugh. That was my understanding. But I was working in a path lab, and then all these flyers appeared about a special lecture that was going to be held. Now, because it was in the hospital, it had a quasi endorsement to me. So we started taking it kind of seriously. Almost everyone in my lab attended this. There were 70 people thereabouts who worked in my lab at the time, but they were spread out in this huge auditorium. Coincidentally, the subjects that the lecturer chose to demonstrate, the different techniques on, all happened to come from my lab. So I knew for a fact that they weren't shills. So yeah, he did make a friend of mine forget the number 6. He made this other colleague of mine immune to pain. He stuck a pin in his arm, and Martin didn't feel a thing, but he enjoyed parading that pin around the following day. So, there's the entertaining side of it. But he shared a story with us that just really fascinated me. And it was a story about a woman who had a pain in her arm. She'd had this pain in her arm for about 10 years, had seen all the doctors, all the specialists. They hadn't found a solution to it. As a last resort, she went to this hypnotherapist, and under hypnotherapy, they did regression. So that's basically where you say, well, the subconscious mind has got all these answers. The answer lies in the past. So we are going to go back to the event that caused this problem. And under hypnosis, that's exactly what she did. And she remembered an emotional event, a traumatic event, that it at the time it had really upset her, but it was in the past, so she had dismissed it and moved on. But that was the event that she remembered. When she comes out of hypnosis, she didn't think much of it, but the following day she called the hypnotherapist and said the pain in her arm had gone. It had gone immediately, but she didn't believe it, but it had gone. So what fascinated me was how the subconscious mind holds on to old information, and it still creates an effect today. Was the pain in her arm supposed to remind her not to repeat a mistake? Was it designed to punish her for having done something wrong? We don't know. But we do know that uncovering it released it. And that was something that Freud saw a great deal of, when he was dealing with female hysteria. Would you believe when I went to university, female hysteria was still a thing? So I could have been diagnosed and locked up because I like to read.
What? I don't even know. Like, I feel like I missed this part of history class. What is female hysteria? Is that like postpartum depression?
Or was what, in the 19th, early 20th century, they would say that anything, it defined a woman. So if a female got hysterical, had fits, complained, liked to read and liked poetry, it was weird what they stuck in there. What Freud found was that it was normally related to some traumatic event that the woman had experienced. She may have forgotten it, she may not have. It was buried in the subconscious mind, but it caused her to act out today. So the important part there isn't the female hysteria. That creates a label that says that women are weak. And so women became weak. When you have that kind of programming, we're still fighting against that stuff. But it would define them. And then when they had something that upset them, it gave them permission to act out, have a tantrum, to faint, to cry, to have to go to bed. There's female hysteria.
Fascinating. The whole idea that the label can then introduce behavior, right? Is just, and you, I mean, I'm assuming that's what you're calling programming, right? Like this is just,
That's part of it. Absolutely.
how do you, I'm raising kids right now. Like, how do you, I mean, they're just getting it from everywhere, right? Like as a parent, there's so much you can do, but how do you take a kid maybe and start to position them to understand that they're being programmed? Like, I don't know how much you can do, and maybe you have a different opinion to like, stave off that programming because it's happening in every facet of it. But can I recognize it? Can I, more by design? You might call that live consciously. I don't know. As I'm raising kids, how do I help them be more mindful of how they're being programmed?
You set them the example. That's what you do. If you see something, if you're watching TV with them and you see something where they talk about girls can't do that, for example, you can turn to them right then and there and say, that isn't true. You set the example. You get them to watch critically. You ask them if they think that is fair. You get them engaged. You have those conversations. You're right. There's a great deal that goes on in the world, and your kids have to go out into the world and experience it. But hopefully, you've got enough communication with your kids. You talk about these things. You discuss these things with them. You make it clear to them that it's okay for them to question, that they don't have to just accept what they're taught out there. And when they're really small, encourage them to come to you with those questions so you can discuss it through with them.
Man, I think, yeah.
The way the internet is nowadays, Bob, I can get whatever answer I want, right? So I can choose almost the programming or be defaulted. It's going to return results that are going to confirm the bias we have going into it on how we've asked things. So what a great point, right? Don't get them out there looking for the answers. Get them coming to us, because as their parents, we want to lead them in that situation.
I don't even know, like I'm programmed.
Yes, you are.
They're coming to me. They're going to get the same programming that I've had. Critical thinking skills, to me, how do you develop those? Like as a scientist of the brain, how do I develop critical thinking skills? Because I think the further we go into this age of AI and obviously the internet, like your ability to go on and even just critically think about the thing that I'm being programmed on is massively important. How do I develop critical thinking skills?
The algorithms are the biggest bane in our lives these days. It can bring us the information that we want, but then it brings us the information that confirms our biases. And the more we look at that stuff, I actually heard an example. There was a guy that I was listening to the other day, and what he said was he will try to interfere with those algorithms. So where he would normally click, he was talking politics, and I'm not going to get into politics, but just supposing he would always click in one direction, he would start deliberately clicking in the other direction, because that then would balance out some of the information that he would see. But I think to encourage critical thinking, you have to have some understanding of how your mind works and the type of automatic triggers. The fact is, research is being done around the world all the time on what makes us all tick. And who do you think uses that information the most?
Marketers.
Marketers.
I don't know.
The media.
Those would be my two guesses.
Politicians. They are going to use it big time. So it's incumbent upon us to start learning some of that information. Now, you don't have to be a brain scientist for this. It goes back to the example of me watching The Exorcist when I was aware of the techniques. So I have this section in mind training where I go through defense mechanisms and shortcuts and compliance principles. There are simple techniques. They did some research where they showed that if you're in a restaurant and the waitress wears red, you will tip her more. She gets tipped more if she is dressed in a red outfit. So
that's why we wore red and white at TGI Fridays when I worked there.
These things, there are things that we do on automatic. If someone gives us a gift, most of us automatically want to reciprocate. It's good manners. But these things happen so automatically that someone can pretend to give you a gift, and then you're going to give them the gift of your time. You're going to pay more attention. So, as I said, you don't have to be a brain scientist about this. I compare this to car engines. I don't know if either of you are into cars, but cars, it used to be that you open up the hood, you see the entire engine. These days, lots of the cars, you open up the hood, you see this big black cover with these little places of access points. So if you need to charge the battery, it's going to tell you, here's the positive. You don't see the battery, you just see something to connect to. There are just these little markers. And what I try to do with mind training is to create those little markers for you for the places that you can access the information. But you do have to be aware that marketers are using these techniques all the time. Just having that awareness will cause you, it's like there's a form of ad that's really common out there. You will have seen it. It's used lots of different places where someone hears of something, a product that is new and exciting, and they have to get it. And they start running to go get it. And then someone else hears of it, and they start following. And soon there's this whole flood of people racing. That's a classic technique. That's social proof. If, there's the fear of missing out, you have to go get it. So why do you have to keep updating your phones when the phone that you have is only 2 years old? Having an awareness of these techniques will just make it possible for you to have that pause so that you don't automatically fire off with a response. You will stop and think, what tactics are they using here? And then you start saying, well, do I really need to update my phone? It's not old. It works perfectly fine.
The answer is no. I'm one of those. I only update every 8 years, Ravinder.
Yeah, I'm like you on that one, Bob. Unless you have an Android phone, then you need to update it to an iPhone.
I want to give people a little bit behind the scenes. We can all see each other. Now, when people listen to this, they can't see us. Ravinder, I want you to know Chad just texted me because I was on my phone. And Ravinder, I know you can see me on my phone. Chad texted me, put the phone down. But for the first time ever, Chad, how many interviews do you think we've done? 100?
More than that, yeah.
For the first time ever, I actually ordered your book while we're sitting here. So that's what I was doing on the phone.
All right, there you go.
I was ordering the book on Amazon. I've never done it while we were sitting on a call with somebody, but this is fascinating stuff to me.
He has not. And we are speaking with, and I'll give the plug to remind everybody if they want to order it, we're speaking with Ravinder Taylor, author of Mind Training, The Science of Self-Empowerment. And as Bob just showed, you can go right on Amazon and get it. Now, Ravinder, I'm a health nut. I bring people on every now and then to talk health just to help my friend Bob. And of course, anybody in our audience that needs it. And one of the notes, and I don't think this will be a surprise to anybody, I want to hear your take on it. One of the notes that I got about you said that one of your talking points was the connection between the mind, health, and our well-being, and how those small changes create big impacts. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody that our mind connected to, but will you talk about that as we kind of get near the end of today's episode with you?
I think the best place to see the influence or an example of the influence the mind has on the body is when you look at the placebo effect. The placebo effect is when someone expects a certain result from medications. So they have found that a capsule has a stronger placebo effect than a pill, an injection even stronger, surgery even more. But what is really fascinating is when you look at things globally. So when you look at the placebo effect for hypertensive drugs, it is low in Germany. But when you look at the placebo effect for gastric ulcers, it is low in Venezuela, higher in Europe, and highest in Germany. So there is something in our very programming that is going to influence how we look at drugs or how well we can respond to these things. I found that really fascinating because that just shows you the vast impact of it's not only what you learn in school, it's just everything that's going on around you. So it's up to us to start learning how that information gets in there and how you can use some of this information to get onto a more healthier track. So, for example, lots of us decide, okay, I'm going to get up early in the mornings and I'm going to go exercise. And for most people, you may set the alarm goes off and you will reach over and hit the snooze button. Or you'll be in bed and you'll be thinking, I want to get up, but I'm tired, but bed's comfortable. When you
mine's so comfortable. Maybe I need an uncomfortable bed. Maybe that's the answer, Ravinder.
No, I tell you the simple answer about it is don't make that decision in the morning. You create a pairing the night before. What you say is, as soon as the alarm goes off, I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to get moving. You're not deciding in the morning if you feel like exercising. You've made a decision ahead of time that says the alarm goes off, I'm out of bed. And that's
logic
the only
over
thing.
Emotion, right? That's logic versus emotion right there. Emotion is the feeling. Logic is the decision the night before because it's the right thing.
And it's the pairing. It's the pairing that makes it becomes automatic then. You're not trying to decide. It's automatic. You have this pairing. If this happens, I'll do that. And it can go into other areas. If you like chocolate cake and you're trying to go on a diet, you can decide ahead of time. They're going to be serving chocolate cake. I will have this instead. You make the decision away from the temptation.
So I got a crazy question. Is it possible to placebo affect myself? Like, is it possible to tell myself this sugar pill something is going to somehow give me more energy and then be taking something that is it possible to
I think the
myself?
answer is yes if you believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think if you went in and you're like, I know this is a fake pill, but if you were like, I'm pretty sure this is real. Like, I in my opinion, I think you would be able to placebo affect yourself if you buy it. But
Ravinder?
Let's let the scientist answer. She knows.
It's a fascinating question. You're totally right, Bob. You need to have the belief as well. But they have done research when the patient knew they were receiving a placebo from their doctor, it still worked. But you have the additional thing that the doctor has given it to them. So that gives it a little more power. So it's a bit of both there. I certainly don't tell myself, I don't dismiss the placebo effect. I don't dismiss alternative treatments or anything. Most things work on me. I will try homeopathy. I'll try herbal medicine. I'll try, various alternatives. I cured myself of rheumatoid arthritis using lots of the techniques that I have in mind training. So, there's elements of it. I think the more important part is you can train yourself not to give in to the placebo effect, I suppose. You can train yourself to believe, there we go, that's better. You can train yourself to believe that alternatives don't work, that you have to have drugs, that you have to have strong drugs. I know people like that. Don't give me that stuff, Mom, my boys say to me. Give me the real stuff. Okay.
All right.
I try.
I mean, keep all that medication away from me. That's just the, companies trying to get me hooked on something the rest of my life.
I'm in that boat, Chad. Like, I don't do the, NyQuil or very rarely aspirin unless it's like, I don't know. Yeah. So I think you can go either way.
Either way. All right. Folks, we've been chatting with Ravinder Taylor, the author of Mind Training, The Science of Self-Empowerment. Such interesting stuff that Bob, mid-episode, ordered the book. And I'm just stalling here to see if Amazon delivered it that fast. I mean, I'm wondering if it's already at your door.
I'm right here in Seattle. Like, I was next to their main corporate headquarters last night. So
it might be outside by the time we're done with this. Ravinder, if they wanted to connect with you, if they wanted to ask questions, follow you, stalk you the way Bob, what are the best ways for them to connect with you at the end of this podcast?
I would love to hear feedback from anyone listening to the show. If you read the book, I would definitely like to hear your feedback on that. My website is ravindertaylor.com. So that's R-A-V for Victor, I-N-D for dog, E-R, Ravinder, ravindertaylor.com. So you can learn more about me through that. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Ravinder Taylor.
I'm so jealous, guys. Ravinder, I'm so jealous. You have your name as your website domain. I'm Bob Stewart. Like, you've got
we hear this every time from Bob.
Your name. Yeah, it's like I'm so jealous of people that like have unique names, that like they have all those things for themselves. I'm telling you, on Facebook, I waited up till midnight the day they allowed us to grab our specific names on Facebook. Like for, I don't know, the first 2 or 3 or 4 years, you couldn't do that. At midnight, I literally tried to get Bob Stewart. It was gone. Like, I'm so jealous. Sorry, I'm not following you on Instagram too, Chad. That's what I was doing on my phone just now.
All right. Well, folks, we hope you are picking up your phone, that maybe you were listening to the episode on your phone and you are following us. You're subscribed to the podcast, so it comes through automatically. And you've ordered Ravinder's book, followed her on Instagram, all those things that you want to do so you can continue this conversation after the episode. Ravinder, we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us and our audience today.
This was so good. Thank you. This is one of my favorite interviews we've done. I loved it.
There you go. So from Bob's mouth to everybody's ears, and until our next episode, do good.